Hey guys, what's up? So I haven't looked actually at the Mechlords as of yet, the new ones that are coming out in a new set, but I've decided that I will have a look at them. You've already had the release on the other archetypes that are going to be shown, including the fossil cards, and I wanted to just give you my opinion on these cards and cover them as well. So the first card is Mechlord Astro Dragon Scaalia, and this is a dark level 10 machine effect monster with 3000 attack and 0 defense. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 Mechlord monsters with different names from your graveyard. Once per turn, when this card declares an attack, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and equip one monster from your opponent's extra deck to this card. 2. This card gains attack equal to the total attack of all monsters equipped to it by this effect. 3. While this card is equipped with a synchro monster, it can attack monsters up to 3 times during the battle phase. So my opinions on this is it's quite a decent boss monster. It having 3000 attack isn't that big of a deal, considering that it can boost itself up. Banishing 3 Mechlord monsters with different names from the graveyard could be a little bit difficult, because there aren't that many Mechlords. You have the Mechlord army monsters, which count as different Mechlords. So you've got a Scaalia, a Weisel, and a Grinnell, and of course you've got the original Emperors. You do have a couple of other cards which count as Mechlords, and I'm guessing as well you've got support cards in here that treat themselves as Mechlords. So summoning this now, as opposed to if this card was released back then, is going to be a lot more easy. The ability to disrupt your opponent by actually stealing their extra deck monsters is good. If you have knowledge of how your opponent's deck is being played, you can use this to your advantage, because it's not equip a random extra deck monster. If it was that, I'd say this effect is worse, because it would be pot luck whether you got hit one of their key cards or not. In this case, you could make the decision to either eliminate one of the key cards, which is kind of like a stepping stone card, to bring out a boss monster from the extra deck, or to get rid of their boss monster from the extra deck to begin with. It all depends on what they're playing and how much knowledge you have of the opponent's deck. Even if you don't have that much knowledge, there are generally cards like Boral Load Dragon, Boral Sword Dragon, other monsters that you can tell are important cards to them. The attack boosting is quite good. However, I would say people run quite a mixture of extra deck monsters. So it just depends on what your opponent is running, but I would imagine they would have some of these kind of like 3000 beaters in their deck. So you could be potentially doubling this monster's attack, and unlike, I think it was one of the Mechlord Emperors, I don't know whether it's Astro Mechanical, it's only able to equip one monster to it. So, and that's also the same with the other machine emperor, the other Mechlord Emperors. This doesn't have that kind of limitation. It's able to access and equip every turn. So you could essentially have your entire back row just full of equipped monsters. The third effect is to do with actually trying to focus in what the Mechlords were originally used to fight against. These were used in the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's anime, and the emphasis was on counteracting synchro monsters, which they believed was going to cause another zero reverse, which would destroy the planet and put everyone in danger. The emperors themselves were all about kind of stealing and abusing synchro monsters to power themselves up. So it makes sense that if it's equipped with a synchro monster, that it will gain an additional effect. Being able to attack up to 3 times, even though it's only purely on monsters, is quite a decent ability. Certain monsters float, so you can maybe respond to those a bit better. Also, you can pretty much clear out most of your opponent's board before they have a chance to recover, which makes it a very consistent boss monster for this archetype. The next card is Mechlord Nucleus Infinity Core. This is a dark level 1 machine monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. You can only use this card's first and third effect, once per turn each. One, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 Mechlord spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. 2, it can't be destroyed by battle once per turn. And 3, if this card is destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon 1 Mechlord Emperor from your hand or deck with a different attribute from the monsters you control, ignoring its summoning conditions. Also, for the rest of this turn, only 1 monster you control can declare attacks. So I really like the design of this card. It's a consistent kind of search card for the deck, and that's why it having no stats isn't necessarily a bad thing. The first effect allows you to search for a Mechlord spell or trap, so you can reliably run things like Mechlord Blast, which destroys both yours and your opponent's card, as well as some of the other spell and traps which are being supported. The once per turn battle protection, I think, isn't that useful. Out of the 3 effects, I just don't see it as that great, because it's just I don't see it as being necessary. The third effect, to be destroyed by a card effect, is how the deck runs anyway. If any of the cards are kind of done through this effect, actually you can bring out a Mechlord Emperor from your hand by that destruction effect. The good thing is it's also not reliant on your opponents to destroy it by a card effect. You can do it yourself. Like I was mentioning, Mechlord Blast can destroy yours and your opponent's monster, but you would actually get the added bonus of if you've got anything in your hand which can be summoned, special summoned from there. And this also ignores the summoning conditions, so you can bring out Scaalia, Weisel, or Grinnell with no issues. I think the limiting of only being able to attack with 1 monster during the turn isn't so bad. If your opponent decides to destroy it, then that's their that turn wasted. But otherwise, it's not that big of a problem. The next card is Mechlord Army Arsenal of Obligato. This is similar to how you've got the smaller Mechlord monsters. I would imagine this is kind of treating as quite similar. It's a level 4 light machine effect monster with 1200 attack and 1800 defense. You can only use the first and second effects of this card's name once per turn. 1, during your main phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, special summon 2 Mechlord Army monsters from your deck in defense position, except Mechlord Army Arsenal of Obligato. But you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn, except machine monsters. And 2, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. During the end phase, inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each Mechlord monster you control. So the stat line on this card is okay. It's a level 4 monster, and the whole point is being able to destroy itself. It can actually trigger the Mechlord Emperors you have in your hand, who can be special summoned from if your card gets destroyed. The second thing is that it doesn't negate the abilities of the Mechlord army monsters you have. You can special summon from the deck, and so I think Grinnell cuts, Army of Grinnell cuts your opponent's an opponent's monster's attack in half. And obviously you've got the Meklord, I think Weisel gains attack points. And it also has like a spell, I think it has a spell negation in there as well. That's quite decent to kind of build up your board. The second effect is quite a weird one. The burn damage is usually, if you've got 2 Mechlord army monsters on, well, if you've got a few monsters on the field, you're doing only maybe 300, 400 points of damage. That's not that relevant. It's very little, and it doesn't. If it was 1,000 damage, I would be saying it's worth using the second effect. I think it was just kind of inbuilt to have some sort of graveyard effect, but I think they could have thought a lot harder about what they could do. But generally, the first effect is good enough for the deck. The next card is Mechlord Assembly. This is a continuous spell card. You can only activate a card with this card's name once per turn, and you can only use the second and third effects of this card's name once per turn each. When this card resolves, you can add 1 Mechlord monster from your deck to your hand. You can discard 1 card, then target 1 monster you control, destroy that monster. And if a face-up Mechlord monster you control is destroyed by battle or effects, you can target 1 other face-up spell or trap card on the field and destroy that card. This is a very key card for the Mechlords. The first effect is a search for a monster. You already have the Infinity Core, which searches the spell or trap. So it's good that you've got a monster search, even if it only works for that one time when it's activated. The discarding effect helps you to control how you destroy things. And although saying that as well, you are kind of minusing yourself, because you're having to discard to use this effect. It just would have been nicer if it had just been you can choose 1 card on a 1 monster you control and destroy it. Because in that sense, it's not a free effect. If it had been target any monster on the field, including your opponents, and just destroy it, that would have been making this card too good. But I think if you're destroying your own monster, you shouldn't have to discard a card to use this effect, but this is just how they've decided to go about it. The third effect is useful in conjunction with the second effect, because you can trigger your own monster's destruction, which is what the Mechlords run on, and to get rid of a face-up spell or trap card. I wish it had been any spell and trap on the field, because that would have made it more useful. Although saying that, there are some decks that are using spells and traps that require like continuous ones, so there is some relevance to using them, and even things like equip spells. Next card is Mechlord Control. This is a quick play spell card. You can only activate a card with this card's name once per turn. 1. Target 1 Mechlord monster you control. That monster's attack becomes equal to the total original attack of all Mechlord monsters on your field, but your opponent takes no battle damage from battles involving that monster until the end of the turn. And 2. If a Mechlord monster you control would be destroyed by battle or effect, you can banish this card up from your graveyard instead. This card is meant to kind of provide a Mechlord with a lot of kind of power. The biggest problem is it doesn't cause any damage, so unless you're using cards like Staunch Defender or Battle Mania to force your opponent to attack into a Mechlord, I don't see the point of this card. I can only see the reason for running that is just so your opponent loses all their cards, all their monsters in one turn, and loses their resources. But I think you're going to need more in order to see any justification for it. The second effect, the graveyard effect, is quite useful, but again, it provides a level of protection, which is what the deck it doesn't really need it so much, but I suppose it's an okay card. The final card is Cruel Mercy of the Mechlord Astro. This is a normal trap card, and the first and second effect of this card's name can only work once per turn. So one is target 3 Mechlord monsters in your graveyard, each with a different name. Either add those monsters to your hand, or special summon them, ignoring the summoning conditions. You cannot special summon monsters until the end of your next turn, except machine monsters. And 2, if you control a Mechlord Astro monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, destroy one synchro monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. So the first effect is able to recover any Mechlords you have, either to the hand or to special summon them, ignoring their conditions. This is a very useful effect if it's been a longer duel and you have more of them in the graveyard. Of course, the army monsters have, a couple of them have summoned effects, so as they're summoned, they activate their effects. Whereas with the Mechlord Emperors, they are best just to have them put on the field so that they can work. This gives you a level of flexibility. If I was going to say if it was just add them to the hand, that wouldn't be that effective as an effect. The second effect works on the whole basis of the Mechlords being an anti-synchro deck, but if your opponent isn't running any of those, then you're kind of out of luck. You're also quite reliant on your opponent having a synchro monster on their field, unless you plan on giving them one of yours. But the burn damage is a good way of kind of finishing off the opponent. Of course, these are the Mechlord Emperors, Grinnell, Weisel and Scaalia, which you'll get reprints of. So what do you guys think of this archetype? Is this something you would consider picking up now? Do you think they're quite useful, or do you think that the kind of support, that legacy support they've received, is just not good enough for these kind of times? Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.